Any idea what Bill Gates, Barack Obama, and Julia Roberts have in common? They all met their spouses at work. There's a good chance you can find romance at the office too, according to Stephanie Losee, co-author of Office Mate. Stephanie, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So dating a colleague has some negative connotations, but you say it shouldn't be that way at all.
I'm amazed that anyone still thinks of office romance as a taboo. I would go further. I would say that office romance can be good for you.
Well, it's working for me because I met my wife there 10 years ago, and I understand.
I met my husband there, and my co-author, Helene Olin, met her husband there. And I don't know about you, but one of the things that's good about it is that unlike other ways that you meet people where you go off of first impression, when you meet someone at the office, you spend months, it's old-fashioned courting. You dance around each other, you're trying not to get involved, you get to know the real person, and oftentimes you end up with someone who you don't really consider your type.
And you obviously have something in common. There's a danger, of course, that that could be the only thing you have in common.
That is a danger. That's one of the, if we're talking about do's and don'ts, one of the do's is make sure that you have more than the office in common. I mean, one of the things that can happen, particularly during a recession, as we are in tough times right now, and office romance is rising because people are spending even more time at the office trying to safeguard their job. You have to make sure that you're not bonding over the fact that you have this boss from hell and you don't feel like you can leave this workplace because there are no other jobs out there. So you have to do things to counteract it. You have to go out with couples who are not from the same office after work, get to know his college friends, get to know your parents, you know, do things that have conversations that don't have to do with the evil boss.
Now, in your book, you say there are some companies where people are more likely to get married. Can you give us a few names?
Yes, Southwest Airlines ranks up there pretty high. At last count, they had somewhere between 1,200 and 1,400 couples out of a population of, I think they have 26,000 employees. And so people say that, you know, their ticker love is about love field, but we think it has, you know, another meaning. They acknowledge that the way that they hire, the same thing is true of the Princeton Review, is so rarefied that it just brings together, as you said, people with very common interests and temperaments. And that, you know, supporting office romance and not having a policy against it is the right thing to do.
Now, obviously, you have to manage an office romance carefully and a little differently from others. You have some do's and don'ts in your book. Now, one of them is you have to be very careful with social media. Can you explain that?
I don't know how anyone thinks that they can manage social media in any way that separates your work life and your personal life. We're starting to hear stories about people breaking up with their office mate by changing their Facebook status from in a relationship to single. And the only thing that's going to inspire is a thirst for revenge. And to be working with an ex with a thirst for revenge is just not going to enhance your career.
Well, now that's an interesting point because even if you don't do it badly, still breakups are tough under the best of circumstances. Now, if you're bumping into that person in the water cooler, isn't it going to be even worse?
You know, breakups are hard no matter how you do them. I mean, in the olden days, which I think office romance does sort of mirror, you were told to date some boy that you had known since childhood, right? And nobody said, now don't start dating that boy from down the street because, you know, if you break up with him, you're going to bump into him at the grocery store and church and the pool. I mean, nobody said this. So this is our new community. The office is the village of the 21st century. And so you're going to bump into each other and just going to have to behave like adults. Oh, no.
Now, another thing you say is you're supposed to talk to your boss at some point when it gets serious. Do I really have to?
You don't have to in certain circumstances. If you are dating someone who is above you in the pecking order, you absolutely at some point have to go to one of your bosses. The boss you should go to is the boss of the higher ranking person. And you don't go in there, you know, like as if to your mother, the two of you together. One of you goes in and says, hi. You know, and this is at the point where you think it's serious. I mean, you don't do this because you had a hookup at the happy hour, you know, down the street from your office last night. You don't do that. You wait at, you know, to the point where you're pretty sure you've got something there. And then you go to that supervisor and you say, I just wanted to alert you to this situation in case you feel there's some, you know, you need to move us around or do anything with us. If you're in a very office romance-friendly industry like media and your peers, and you're not going for the same promotion, you're not, you know, competing with each other for something, you don't have to tell anyone. But at the point where you tell, it should be before the boss has heard it from someone else.
That makes sense. Finally, one more question. In the case of Bill Gates and Barack Obama and Michelle, they violated this rule, but, or at least treaded upon it. You should be really careful about dating a subordinate, dating somebody who is your boss, right?
Yes, yes, but we cannot recommend entirely against it because they tend to convert to marriage at double the rate of regular office romances.
And the marriages work out?
And the marriages seem to work out. It does stand to reason if you think about it a little bit. Because if you take the step of dating your boss, it probably was what it needed to be, which is true love. Because think of what's at stake. There's so much at stake. You don't cross that line unless you think that it could be the rest of your life.
Good point. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching.